Hello. I should turn on my thing. Hello. My name is Josh. Hi, Josh. I've been a software developer for just about 18 years, and I've worked at a lot of really good places, and a lot of, well, really not so good places that were not fun. And about 2 years ago, I went down the path that a lot of developers run away from screaming, and I took on a role as a manager of a team of developers. This is my therapy. No. And it actually has brought a lot of perspective into all those experiences I had before. As I, looking back at my career, I could see things in a new light now that I see it from this point of view. And today I'd actually like to talk a lot about those things, some of those experiences, talk about what I've seen, and kind of boil down some of the good traits that I've seen on teams as far as what makes it a good place to be a developer at. And just to say, these traits aren't like, there's obviously places that you work that are hostile, and that's not what I'm talking about. Those are another story. I'm talking about smaller things that, kind of add up over time. So I worked at Two Toasters. We were a mobile design and development agency, much like a lot of you might work at. Man, I keep ending sentences in at. I think I'm from Ohio. And we did a lot of really great products. These are just a small sampling of things that we've worked on. We also, RestKit, if you're familiar with RestKit, it actually started inside the doors of Two Toasters and grew out of there. Blake, who started RestKit, was one of the founders of Two Toasters. We have all the fun stuff, like ping pong. That's actually our QA team, so we know that ping pong table is solid. And we have a great team. We all love working together. We all challenging each other. These are everybody gets a custom toaster icon. So, we have something that kind of speaks to who you are and what you like. Mine's actually off screen, but it's the coolest, if I say so myself, because it requires 3D glasses to actually view it properly. It's an anaglyph. But, it's a really great team. And overall, it's been a really great place to work. It's probably been the best place that I've ever worked at in my career. So in April, we were acquired by Ticketmaster. On April 1st, which, by the way, is a horrible day to be acquired. Just don't do it. I still have people asking me, oh, that was real? No one was expecting this. It's been a huge change, right? You go from how do you build stuff for clients to how do you make up stuff to go. So we formed Ticketmaster Mobile Studio, and that's where we are. Same team, everything moved over. So we should be the same. Everything should be the same, right? Well, I had to think a lot. Like, nothing that we did at Two Toasters was like planned, because when I started there was 9 people, and we kind of evolved into what we were. And I think as I was like really reflecting on this, I was like, well, what do we need to do at Ticketmaster to make it stay as great? Because as you might imagine, the challenge is actually a lot harder now, because going from a small team to this big corporation, there's a lot of different meanings behind everything. And on that note, what would be a really bad team? If we made a team, what would it look like if we were trying to be bad? So my thing stopped working. We're just gonna think with Batman for a second as I pop batteries out. That's how I think, by the way, like this. So, hence the title of my talk, and that's what brought me here today. You might be familiar with the movie How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. It's clearly where the idea of this title came from. If you're not, the basis of the movie is Kate Hudson's character tries to do all the cliche bad dating things to break up with Matthew McConaughey, and hilarity ensues. What would that look like for developers, though? Like, what would it look like if we built the perfect, boring environment for developers? What would that look like? So I thought we'd play a little game. Meet my friend Dave. He's a really good iOS developer. He's actually been using the Apple Watch for a long time, a lot longer than any of us. He just started working at Evil Corp. And he has a lot of really bad stories. Some of these things that I've heard him say and tell me about his place of work has been mind-blowing. And again, they're not like those things that are like really bad. I mean, they're the things that add up and you're just like, after 10 days, you're like, what did I do here? First day of work, it doesn't matter where he is, what he's doing. His butt needs to be in the seat, and that's all that matters. Because what else would you be doing? I mean, it's not like you're trusted to do your job. As long as you're in your seat, you're doing your job. And then besides, he's in meetings all day, so it's not like he was going to get anything done. And he never has the tools, right? He's always scrounging for tools, and he doesn't understand it because while he's over here trying to build software for the factory, he's trying to use pirated software. Meanwhile, the factory, which is all dusty and dirty, has brand new MacBook Pros to display a web browser. What's going on here? Why can't Dave have Photoshop? And obviously he couldn't make it this week. He really wanted to. I called him on the phone and he was like, I just don't have the budget. Because there's no support for training at Evil Corp. Unless it's training to be evil, I guess. I don't know. This one, it's a little bit of an exaggeration, but this is something I've seen a lot where somebody gets promoted to the point where they're responsible for a team of developers, and they don't think of the developers as a team of creative people. They think of developers as extensions of their hands, and they try to force them to all do what they want. And then he never really gives them any good feedback either, right? He's always, do this, do this, do this, and only tells them when he's not happy. And he's allowed to work at home, but he has to document everything, and he's just, the basis assumption is he's not working. Like, I mean, there's nothing wrong with communication. Obviously, we want to communicate, but if the assumption is that you're not working, that's not a good place to be. And he's the only iOS developer, so his manager, aside from his manager, which knows some iOS, he gets constantly redirected in other things that he's not even really that interested in. And he's not actually allowed to communicate with anybody on the team, right? He basically has his little bucket, his little silo, and things go into the silo, he does them, and they go out. He doesn't understand why. He doesn't really ever get to invest in the product. I did this one very recently because I heard a story recently, but, he went to his boss one day and said, hey, there's some things, I'm not unhappy, but some things can make this better. This is what he was told. And everybody knows that you never hassle the Hoff. So, okay. All right, let's end the game. I understand it all seems like an exaggeration. I mean, you very rarely ever end up in that scenario, but actually, I've seen all of those things happen. In some cases, I've seen all those things happen at the same place. And that's not okay, because we can do better. If we're running a team, we can do better. If we're on a team, we can communicate better. And if you're leading those teams, it's your job to do better. The job of a manager isn't just check off boxes. It's to help people build great things and get out of their way. So, Oh, looks like Dave just quit his job. Huh. All right, I'm going really fast, so I'm going to take a drink of water while we watch Dave dance. If you haven't seen this video, it's what's the Ooga Chukka song? It's his cover of that song. I can't stop that feeling. Anyway, so 2 toasters. Let's go back to that. What made it a great place? Why was it so fun to work at? Why did we have so many people that, it wasn't perfect every day, but why did we have so many people that were really excited to be toasters? That's what we called ourselves, toasters. Now we call ourselves, I don't know yet. We're still figuring that out. And I want to say, these are all things I've learned over just really reflecting what we've done. And I don't think that we do these all perfectly, but I think they're really a good set. And there's 7 of them. So growth. Growth is kind of twofold. And this is where, you're looking at your team and you're thinking about not only what can they do to learn more, but also what can they do to grow in their position or their role or responsibilities. And what we've done at 2 Toasters is a couple things. I call it intentional learning. So we do a lot of different things. So for example, if you're familiar with Cocoa Heads, we do one that's on the inside called Cocoa Brains. It's on the inside. Basically, the idea is the same as Cocoa Heads. We have someone speak every week about something they've worked on, something they've learned. I'll probably talk about something that I've learned this week, next week, maybe in 2 weeks, and share. And that way, everybody can kind of keep growing. Swift Study Group, I have a laser, cool. Swift Study Group is something that one of our actual junior developers started. She really wanted to learn Swift, so she organized a session every week where people would get together and study Swift. And we would have some people that had a lot more Swift experience. They would come in and they would all work together. And now she actually understands Swift such that she's actually started building a new product in Swift. I take that back. She reverted back to Objective-C for reasons I'm sure you all know. Swift 2. It's not out yet. Conferences. 3 of us were here last year. We have an open conference thing, so anybody can ask to go to a conference, and I actually, as the team lead, I budget money. I just guess that maybe 2 people might win the WWC lottery, and maybe a few people want to go to 360, maybe some will go to other conferences, and people get to go. We're involved in the community. We were talking about Cocoa Heads earlier. We sponsor it, we host it, and we're really involved in that. And actually, that's been a real benefit for us because we've been able to hire a lot of people from Cocoa Heads. I actually was at Cocoa Heads before I started 2 Toasters, and most of the people on our team also came through Cocoa Heads. And the fun one is Apple announcements. We actually will stop working, we'll all gather together and watch all the Apple announcements. And it's kind of fun. We had an Android developer that could do like a really good Johnny Ive impression, and he would basically narrate the whole thing as Johnny Ive. It's a great time. So again, intentional learning. We take the time to do that. And sometimes it's hard, especially as a client services team, right? You have time that can be used to make money, and we intentionally said, no, this set of time we're going to be learning. That's difficult. It's difficult to plan for, it's difficult for everything, but we made it work. The other side is positional growth, like role growth. I'm not really a big super fan of titles. I feel like sometimes they're unnecessary, but whatever you have, whether you have a title or just kind of implied roles, like an individual contributor, whatever it is, they should understand what their growth is, like what are they growing towards. And maybe they don't want to grow to something, and you know that, and you track that, and you think about it. Point is it needs to be clear. It needs to be clear where people are growing, because maybe they don't know what they want to do. Maybe they want to just work for a while, and that's fine, but you know that. One idea we've actually been playing with is the idea of the teaching hospital. Now, I'm not a doctor or anything. I've never actually, aside from going to Duke a few times when my kids were hurt or something, I've never really experienced it. But if you think of it in a way, it does have a good parallel into software development, because we can hire junior developers and they can work closely with more senior developers on actual products, and they grow really fast that way. Now at Two Toasters, that was easy because every 3 to 6 months we're starting a new product. In our new feature, it's gonna be a little harder, but the point is they're really working towards, they understand where they're going, which leads to feedback. This is really important, obviously, because people want to know where they stand. They need to know what to expect out of their, are they doing good? Are they doing well? Are they doing really poorly and they just don't know and they're going to get fired next week? Excuse me. I've been in a lot of places where that's what it felt like, right? You don't know what's happening. So what we do is we do a monthly one-on-one, and that is literally a 15-minute walk. I'll just walk around the office building and I'll ask them, how are you? Or maybe, how's the project you're working on? How's it going? Is there anything I can help you with? And usually everything's good. We can talk. We might end up talking about technical stuff. We might not. We might end up talking about movies. That has happened before. And then we follow that up with a quarterly one-on-one, which is just, basically it's the monthly one, and then every 3 months it's the bigger one, which is a little longer. It's 30 minutes. And it's a little more formal, but not that much. And the point of this one is to, again, ask how they're doing, but also kind of plan and review goals. And what those goals tie into are those roles that we were talking about. Or maybe not. Maybe it's something they just want to be good at. And the point of goals, for the way I look at it, is it's not really good to just make a goal saying, I want to make a blog post that's really fun. Because they can do that, they might do that anyway. It also might not be a good idea to make a goal that's like, I want to ship my product. Because they're probably already on their way to doing that. A good goal for us is, what's going to stretch them? Like, what's something just a little bit beyond their reach that's going to help them grow? And in fact, I'll often say, we don't have a good idea, so I'd rather not have a goal, and let's really think about what would actually be good for you. Because really, like I said, what's the point? If your goal is just to write a blog post, you're going to write a blog post. Unless your goal is to be able to become a really good blogger, then write blog posts. It also helps that I'm a software developer. So when we're out walking and they say, NSW manager, I understand what they're talking about, and I can sometimes help. Sometimes I also lead the Android team, so sometimes they're like, and I'm like, So before I go on, I've had that Prince song from that movie in my head ever since I made the slide. I'm not saying that Joker is trustworthy, but the Prince song is called Trust, and that was the scene. I can't undo it, sorry. Trust is really important. In fact, I think to me it's the most important. Because if you don't trust your team, why are they there? Like, if I don't trust you to do your job, you're not going to trust me to even tell you what to do. We already have a bad relationship, right? So why? What are they doing there? Let them be creative. Let them solve the problems. We took in Dave's example earlier. His boss didn't trust him. He swooped in, I call it the hands of the VP syndrome, because you're not really an employee. You're not really a creative person. You're just extra hands. And really, micromanagers, please leave, because that's the exact opposite of all of this, I think. I mean, again, there's nothing against communication. That's all important, but you get what you need, and then you pay attention, and you are proactively working with the people. This is a tough one, and this one actually, I'm going to talk a little bit about the acquisition, because this really came to light a lot with us. People like to work on things that are challenging or interesting or align with their values. Obviously, people don't all the time, but I bet if every one of you, I could say, would you rather work on something you're interested in or something you're not interested in. You want to be working on something you're interested in, of course. It's really tough, and we lost people. We lost half of our iOS team. That's a huge hit, and there are many reasons, but one of the biggest reasons was we didn't excite them, and maybe the new work that we were going to be doing wasn't interesting to them, and they wanted to leave, and that's okay, because they've all moved on and they're doing more exciting things with their lives. Well, at least for them, they're having a good time, and it's all okay. So it might not be a good fit. It might not be something that's fun for you, and that's okay. I, as a manager, should work with you to help you find something that, I should help you. I shouldn't just be like, go away. And also during the one-on-one, this is something I've learned recently, and I really want to do it more. This is actually really new in my head. Ask them if they're bored. Like, actively say, are you bored? Because if they're not bored, that's great. If they are bored, you get serious problems, because they're probably looking. And this is actually something that's really kind of a crazy idea that we did at Two Toasters. We actually let the whole team be involved in the project selection. So we would let the team would see what was in the pipeline, in the sales pipeline, and we would turn down projects because the team didn't feel like it matched our values all the time. And it felt very good. It felt great, to be honest. And I got to see what was coming. And there was a time where I wanted to work on there was a core audio project. I really wanted to work on it, and I said I wanted to work on it, and I got to work on it. It was great. And then it never shipped, which is another story, but I don't want to talk about it because it makes me sad. Culture. This is obviously a nebulous thing. Like, there's a lot of different meanings to this, but I think there's a few things we can talk about. The mindset of improving, like optimizing your team, improving your team through processes, through shared code, through all this, is really important, and it helps you grow. We had this really cool thing happen where we had these pairs of developers that would always work together, and the way they implemented their networking stack, they started kind of going off in two different directions, and then they converged those ideas, and we had an even better networking stack because of it. So we're constantly doing this. In fact, no two projects I ever worked on at Two Toasters were the same. The process, how we implemented it, we started off not using storyboards, then we used storyboards, and we're not using storyboards again. We're always trying to decide what's best for now. The other thing is respect. I know this is a controversial topic because everybody thinks that you shouldn't respect each other. I thought that would get more laughs. Respect each other, right? Respect each other's time. If you're making a calendar appointment, let them know why they have to be there. That kind of culture of just shared respect for each other is important, especially in an open office culture where I can just walk up to you and interrupt you. I need to pay attention to you, and as a lead on the team, that I want the whole team to think like that. So I should do that. They should do that as well. The one that we actually found that was really interesting was respecting clients. Now, I'm sure you've all experienced this thing where you get someone else's code and you're like, oh, these guys are clowns. Who let them have X code? That's not really a good thing to do, right? Like, these are the people that are paying you, and you have no idea of the context. So respecting the clients, respecting everybody, respecting time, that's a big culture element that I think is really important. The rest of the team, we all like to work with other people that are good, right? We don't want, this is kind of the Steve Jobs no bozo thing, right? You don't want to work on a team where there's one person that's not really pulling their weight. So this is where hiring comes into play, right? Especially as a team lead, you're hiring people. And what we actually did is we let the whole team involved in it. We had a very set process. There'd be a phone screening, there'd be a phone interview, there would be code samples. And at that point, we would have enough information about the person that if we still want to move forward, we knew what we were worried about. So the whole team, or maybe a subset of the team, obviously there's schedules and stuff, but a subset of the team would sit down and we would plan a custom interview for that person that we knew could answer what concerns we had. And then at the end of that, everybody is a thumbs up where it's a no hire. So take the time to hire right. Take the time to like build your team the right way. Oh man, for a second I looked over and I thought I misspelled transparency and I freaked out. It's okay. I've been looking at the word growth from the slide earlier, and it's that thing where it looks weird. It doesn't look right anymore. Anyway, transparency, communication, these are really important things. In this context, I think the most important thing is no silos. What we did is we did a show and tell every week. Actually today, we do show and tells on Wednesdays at lunchtime, and everybody has an opportunity to show off what they worked on. Most of the time it ends up being developers, but actually the point is anybody can be involved. Designers can show off what they're working on. Project managers can show off their new processes they think might be a good place to go to. New tools, whatever. Point is we share it and we all know what everyone else is working on. And another thing, again, this is one that I think I have a lot of improvement to do on, is proactively sharing that information, like sharing information about what our teams are working on while I'm talking to people in one-on-ones, like letting them know what's going on, so it's clear like that we're all moving in the same direction. We're not all just like a bunch of random people walking in circles. This is actually, if you're familiar with Panic, this is something I really want to do. I haven't done this yet. Panic's a company in Western, I think Portland, and they have this tool called Status Board. And what I really like here is, over here we have a list of products and who's working on them. But we also have stats about like shipping and all this kind of stuff. I think this is actually a really good place to shoot for, and having a lot of good statistics so people understand kind of what's going on. I had this really interesting thing a couple weeks ago. We had spun off this new team to go work on some feature ideas as far as Ticketmaster goes, and it wasn't clear what they were doing. A lot of the team was like, oh weird, now he's over there doing something that I don't know about. And then he needed a designer, so we actually stole a designer from another team. Someone came up to me, he's like, what the hell? What's going on over here? I sat down, I told him about it. There's no secrets. He's clear. I didn't have to spell out the whole thing. I just let him know what it was. But I think that's what this can solve, is like letting people know what's going on. I hope so, right? I hope these are all obvious. In fact, when I was writing these down, I was like, everybody's gonna be like, duh, go home, Josh. But the more I actually thought about it and the more I worked on it, I realized this isn't really about iOS developers anymore. This is about people. If you're leading a team of people, you are working for them. And if you're not, you're gonna lose them. They're not gonna wanna be there, they're not gonna be excited to be there. And if you're not supporting them, you're going to lose a developer in 10 days. So really this should be called How to Lose a Team Member in 10 Days. So the future, where is this going? Like I said, this is all continuing on into Ticketmasters. I almost said 2 tickets. That would have been a mistake. So I'll go on forward into Ticketmaster, because I want it to be a great place to work, just like 2 Toasters was. And I want it to continue to improve. I want to figure out more reasons why these are all good ideas, and maybe even more good themes. So I really hope that it gave you some ideas about, if you're leading a team, ways to make it more exciting to work on. And actually, if you're interviewing to go to another company, I think these are also good things to look for. Because remember, if you're getting a job, part of your role in an interview is to interview the employer so that you want to work there. So these are also good things to think about when you're actually out and about and trying to get a new job. So that is all I have. I'm open to questions, but thank you.
So during the acquisition, I don't know if you were involved in that. Was it anticipated that you'd lose half the iOS team, or considered it all?
So the question was, during the acquisition, did we expect to lose half the team? So without like patting my back here, I did expect people to leave, and the people that left are exactly the ones I expected to leave. And I think that worked out because I was talking to them all the time. I knew what was interesting to them. I knew that as soon as they heard Ticketmaster, they were going to leave. But yeah, so yes, we did know. We hoped that it went. We worked really hard to like show them what it could be. But yeah, people left still. The question is, how big is the group? So I actually have iOS, Android, and QA, and that's 13 people. Before it was 17-ish. So.
One thing I'd like to add to your list is a vision. So if you as a leader can provide a vision for people to say that, it may be tough now, hang in there, because this is what we're going to be doing. And I get to them, okay, I'll suck it up and not worry about things right now.
Yeah, and I think that even touches on the challenging, like, this may seem a little weird now, but there are really big problems to solve, and we will get there. So yeah, I agree.
Your open conference policy,
Mm-hmm.
how do you avoid everybody wanting to go to all?
That frightens me every day. Luckily, I haven't run into that because scheduling and time, and some people are just not interested in some. It generally balances out to my budget's big enough for everybody. In fact, most of the time I'm actually over budget for conferences. The WWDC one's the hardest because I can't predict that. So I just say 2 people. And that's what I budget for. And if it's more than that, then I have to get creative and see if I can help more people go. But yeah, it's hard. I don't have a good answer.
Obviously, our team's a little bigger. Might help you. We give a set amount to each employee every year, so they have knowledge. And we give them 5 days and a set amount of money. And if they go over that money, it comes out of pocket for the rest. But the number can cover almost all of WWDC. So then, this way you're like, okay, I've got 13. They all get this amount. And push people to go.
So when we were 2 toasters, that was harder because, frankly, we couldn't afford to send everybody. It was just way out of our reasonable rates. Moving forward, we have obviously bigger pockets to support this, so I expect that to be easier to do something like that as we go forward.
How's the culture change been going to Ticketmaster in your experience, and how has that affected your team, location, relationship with the corporate overlords, that type of thing?
So at first it was a little weird. Like everybody, it was a shock, right? There's a lot of change. One of Ticketmaster's values is embracing change, and I always tell people, yeah, we're all doing well at this. The culture has changed a little bit. There was a period where, I don't know how to say this in a nice way, where we kind of felt too special, and we thought that we were awesome or something. And I mean, I'm proud of the work we've done, but the teams at Ticketmaster have a harder problem than we have. And even though the app isn't something that we designed, they're working on it every day and they're doing a lot of great things in it. So I think there was a small culture shift at the beginning where everybody was kind of judging them. And that's kind of where I was getting at with respect, because we don't know the context. Secondly, initially we started off with working on products, and what happened is everybody's team at the home office had these little pet projects, and as soon as they're like, oh, we've acquired a mobile team, they sucked us in, and we were working on this. And for a while, even though we were very design and development focused, we were just doing SDK work. We weren't even doing any real product work, which is what we were told we were required for. We actually pulled the ripcord and we sent an email up to the executive team and said, why did you acquire us if this is what you wanted? And they actually changed it, and they stopped everything we were working on and said, this is your new vision, go. And since that's happened, things have kind of really leveled off, and we've been really working towards this new vision. So it was hard. I think at least everybody in the management staff was in tears at some point in the whole process.
Kind of 2 questions, but hopefully related. So you talked about your feedback, the monthly one-on-one, 15-minute block.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever run into a problem where that seems to just kind of be the same conversation
Yeah.
And then also, kind of related to that, you talked a little bit about making goals. Can you talk a little bit more about
Sure.
what makes a good goal, what doesn't make a good goal?
Sure. So the question was, what happens when the 15-minute walks become redundant or repetitive? And the second question was, what are good goals? So yes, they become that, and I have to dig. And sometimes I dig a little deep and just say, like, well, let's talk about, did you see how bad Fantastic Four was? Oh my gosh. And we'll just talk. So sometimes that's fine. The point is that we're catching up, and I know more about them. I know what interests them, and I can think about it. As far as goals, goals are really hard, especially in a 30-minute time box. So a lot of times I'll try to prep them to think about what they're really interested in, what they feel. Like, it might not be a new role. It might not be, I want to be a senior developer. It might be, I want to be an expert at core audio. And then I think a good goal is, that's where you want to be. So what are the steps to get there? Okay, so we use the SMART thing. Are you familiar with SMART? There's specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, and time-based. And which I always think the A and R are funny because it's either yes or no, and if it's no, you can't do it. So it's like, it should be SMT goals. Anyway. But yes, that's what I think makes a good goal. And the point is that it challenges them. It can't be just like, I've got a goal to walk across the street tomorrow at noon. Any other questions? Because since there's a whole rating system, I have a really cool gift to show if there's like a 5-star rating in here. I really like David Hasselhoff, if you can't tell. All right, thank you.